Welcome to the Grassroots Army Podcast. This platform is for common sense people looking for up-to-date, accurate, and truthful information without the hot garbage corporate media bias. The power of one can lead to the power of many. You never know what small act that you may say or do that may literally change the lives of millions tomorrow. And don't you ever think that you can't make a difference, because you can.
Today we have two superstars in Michigan. One superstar and one ex-superstar maybe. Tom Leonard and Garrett Soldano. Tom Leonard obviously is a candidate for governor in Michigan, and Garrett Soldano, along with me, are two of the losers that ran for governor previously. But we still like to be involved and have conversations because Michigan needs some help. So welcome, guys. Welcome, Tom. Welcome, Garrett.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Before we begin, we got to give Tom his present.
Absolutely.
We got
a little something for Tom Leonard.
There we go, right there. A nice little sweatshirt for you.
And it's a hoodie. I love the hoodies.
And it's U of M blue for you.
All right, my
So
friend.
thanks for
Thank
spending
you.
time with us
Appreciate
today.
it.
You know,
This
you are
is great.
really lucky, Tom, because I have Michigan State green and they were out. But being a Sparty, I really wanted that to be green.
No,
No.
we don't make green ones.
Well, you wanted a brown one then?
Yeah, absolutely. Go Broncos.
Bronco brown.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we lost against State earlier this year, but it's okay.
Really? Was it close?
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
No,
Just
we're not going
checking.
to talk about that today.
Just checking. Just checking. They've got a great program. I mean, they're really good at hockey.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Really, really good at hockey. But I think so is Michigan State.
Yeah. Weird.
That'll be a good game. We should go. Anyhow, let's get back to what's important. And Tom, you're running for governor. And give us, if you would, to start the tone, set the tone for today's conversation. How do you view Michigan? Where are we at? And what's good? What's bad?
So, Kevin, I remember what it was like graduating, undergrad at the University of Michigan, the law school at Michigan State, and seeing many of my friends flee because of the Great Recession. And I've actually said foundationally, I think Michigan is in a worse spot right now than we were during the Great Recession. I mean, you look at the first 2 decades of the century, the only state that Michigan beat for population growth, West Virginia. We are 48 out of 50 in unemployment, bottom 10 for income growth. But I think one of the biggest things right now, 75% of our fourth graders cannot read at a proficient level. That is our future. That is the foundation of the state. So when I look at this, and many people ask why I'm doing this, it's 3 simple reasons. Hannah, Thomas, and Danny, my 9-year-old, my 6-year-old, and my 1-year-old. And the last thing that I want, frankly, selfishly, is for one of my kids to come to me in the next 10 to 15 years and say, Dad, I am so sorry. I want to stay in Michigan. It is the greatest state in the entire country, but I have to leave because there's no opportunity here for me. That's why we're doing this. And when I look at the state of the state, it's in trouble.
Yeah, I would agree. We are still leading the nation in college graduates who leave Michigan to find employment elsewhere.
And you think about this for just a moment. I mean, I've said this in speeches. I mean, my wife, Janelle, fantastic. She's a Hoosier. She loves Indiana. Okay. And I say this a lot of times in jest, but I'm serious about it. If my kid were to come to me, or anybody comes to me and they say, listen, I love Michigan, but I got to go to Florida or Texas because I just want a little bit more sunshine. I want some warmer weather. I can rationalize that. I can understand that. What I can't rationalize is the fact that Ohio and Indiana are kicking our butts right now, and people are leaving for Indiana and Ohio.
West Virginia is kicking our butt. Mississippi is kicking our butt. I don't know of a state that's not ultimately kicking our butt when you start to break down business environment, the educational environment, and when you start to really look at the details of 2 additional areas. 1, how our government functions, and 2, the safety and security of the people in our great state of Michigan. In every category, in my view, and I'm trying to be constructively critical, we are failing. There is something better. And I've said this before, Lansing continues to feed the people of Michigan scraps, and they call it filet mignon. And the people have started to believe that scraps are filet mignon. I mean, it pisses me off, frankly. You've got 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. One of my kids has left the state. One of my kids ultimately is employed in the state but will be leaving the state. The third one stayed in the state. So a 66% outflow of potential good income earners.
Yep.
My kids are college age and older. Yours are coming up through the ranks. How do you address it? It's a big pill. What are the issues for you?
Yeah, I mean, there are several things we need to look at, we need to do, in my opinion. But first and foremost, let's look at reinstating right to work. When you look at the nine of the top 10 growth states in the country are right to work states. Why the Democrats repealed this 2 years ago is completely beyond me. And the day that it was repealed,
Well, is it really
Michigan
beyond
was what? I'm sorry. what's
Is it
that?
really beyond
Well,
you?
no, it's not. I mean, I understand they were going to do it beholden to the unions. I get it.
Pandering to the unions.
Correct. But in terms of policy, the day that it was repealed, Michigan was 36 out of 50 in unemployment. Now, listen, not good enough. I'm not saying 36 out of 50 is good, but it's a lot better than 49 out of 50 that we're facing now. We were 0.1% off of the national average. Now I believe we're 2%. Income tax. You look at the top 5 of the top 10 growth states across the country, or growth states across country. I believe 5 of the 10 either have a substantially lower income tax than Michigan or no income tax at all. We need income tax relief, and we need to phase out the income tax in the state of Michigan. I'm sorry, go there. I don't want to.
Do you? No, that's great. Everything you said. There's a lot to unload because Michigan's on fire. Obviously, we can go on and on about.
And I could go for
education,
40
energy.
minutes on issues, so please cut me off.
No,
when
you're
you got a
good.
question.
You're good. There's a lot of interrupting.
Yeah, you got it. No, do it.
I mean,
Please.
because we have
That's
to
why I'm
have
here.
we have to air these things out because a lot of times what you get with some Republican candidates is just talking points. They're just giving talking points. Where's a strategy to fix it? So obviously there is a petition, and I don't know if they're going to get enough signatures right now with the property tax with Carla Wagner. Do you want to phase out the state income tax first, or would you be willing to like, hey, we need to do property tax?
So I think Michigan needs absolute comprehensive tax reform. Okay. And I think we need to hit both at the same time. Now, we're likely not going to be able to phase both of them out. Okay. But I believe we need to address both of them. Frankly, the property tax issue is the number one issue that I hear about when I'm out on the campaign trail. I mean, people are fed up. I talk to seniors who don't believe they're going to be able to stay in their forever homes. Some of them want to downsize, but they can't because if they purchase a home, that cap's going to be blown off and they might wind up spending more, paying more for that home than the current home that they're in. I talk to young people who they can't purchase a home because of affordable housing and property taxes. And you think about the stress that puts on a young couple. No more date nights. They can't go on a vacation. But most importantly, now they're stressed about starting a family. So I think we need to look at both of them. And that's why when you look at my plan, it calls for immediately reducing the income tax to 3.9 and begin the phase out process. And then there are some ideas in there for how we can control property taxes and hopefully reduce them here in the state.
That phase out of the state income tax, what is that over time? What's your goal set there?
There is not a time set. I mean, that is something that would be up for discussion. I would love to phase it out as soon as we can. But again, what it calls for is immediately reducing it to 3.9. That would be over $1 billion in tax relief immediately. Listen, I'd love to see it phased out within 5 years. But again, there's not a set timeline in the plan.
Let's talk about that
Yeah.
for a minute. And that's one of the areas, Tom, that is, much as I respect you, this is going to be spirited debate.
Oh, let's have it. Absolutely.
I believe that we should completely eliminate income tax. Phase out plans would be a slow death in my view. And yet there are nuances that make it really challenging. So I understand where you're going, but it's my belief that Michigan needs transitional actions, transformative actions. And the traditional way is to slowly, we're going to measure it, we're going to see. So let me give you some data on the states that have completely eliminated personal income tax. Boom, 100% gone. Every one of those states, tax revenue increased. When we talk about relief, we're talking now about $14 billion of tax revenue and the control of that revenue being shifted from government to the people of Michigan. Mm-hmm. And the reason that tax revenues go up is we have a sales tax. We tax everything. I'm surprised we don't tax number of breaths per day in our country. But our sales tax is higher than our personal income tax. And the beauty of eliminating immediately the personal income tax is that people are going to spend that $14 billion in our economy, which stimulates other taxes, which stimulates job growth, which stimulates everything that drives the engines. It actually protects people from maybe losing their home because options become much greater when the economy is humming. So Art Laffer, who did the Reagan tax cuts, Steve Moore, who did the Trump tax cuts, would both tell you, cut them immediately and let the market work. How do you respond to that?
I would say when I become the state's next governor, if the legislative will is there to cut it immediately, let's do it. I mean, the quicker we can do it, let's do it. I just put forth a plan that I believed was practical and something that I thought we could get across the finish line when I'm the state's next governor.
Yeah. And you know what? You are right. Your plan is practical. But when I look at you, and we've had this conversation off the camera, and now I'm going to say it on the camera, I think you'd be a hell of a leader, but you got to get outside your comfort zone. And the legislature is always going to want to be slow, be calculated, be traditional in their approach. And Michigan needs more. And I believe you've got that in you if you choose to act.
Well, and I appreciate that. No, and thank you for the comment. My pushback on that would be, you know, I believe the state income tax, it generates what, a little over $12 billion per year.
12 to 14
or,
billion.
Or takes $12 billion out of the hard-working taxpayers' hands. Okay. Yeah. But I believe if you put in a 5-year phase-out plan, I personally would argue that is aggressive. You're talking about, you know, over $2 billion in tax relief per year. Again, the sooner we can do this, Kevin, I'd love to get it done. Mm-hmm. You look at Indiana. I mean, they are on pace right now to phasing it out, but they were not able to do it immediately either, despite all the growth that they are experiencing. Again, do I believe we can do it? Yes, but what I wanted to do in my plan, I wanted to put something, again, that I felt was practical and something that I knew when we get in office, we can get across the finish line.
Totally respect it. You know, and you are more familiar with Lansing, for instance, in your approach to Lansing than I would have been. One of the things that I discovered that I thought was crazy, because again, leaders put forth ideas, and the idea of completely eliminating the income tax. And I thought, okay, if I have to bend to the legislature, wouldn't it be great to say, let's cut personal income tax by 50% on day one, and let's set a number that if you are below a certain household income, either single family or married, that you pay no taxes. And you know what I found out? It's against the law. It's against the state constitution. Some dumbass politician said it wouldn't be right to tax appropriately, even if that means some people don't pay taxes. And that's where we get into problems.
If I may, I was going to say one thing I would say is, you know, you look at many of the folks that are running today, and they're bringing up income tax relief. They're phasing out the income tax. My question to them is, where were you at 8 years ago when I was House Speaker and we were working to do this? You may recall the first bill that we introduced in the House was House Bill 4001. And what it called for was bringing that income tax down to 3.9 and phasing it out. And I will tell you, many have asked me what was the most surprising thing that I experienced when I was Speaker. And it was how hard it was to get certain Republicans to want to cut taxes. And you may recall, I thought this was something that was going to fly through the legislature. And within days, we had then Governor Snyder was opposing it. We had several members in our caucus were opposing it. And after a couple weeks of debate, we got into the wee hours of the night, and we were going to be a couple votes short of getting this across the finish line. And for the 20, 25 years prior to that, speakers, if they didn't have the vote, they would just pack up, they would go home. All the members were given a pass, they were let off, they would go back to their districts, and they'd say, you know, I don't know why we didn't put that up for a vote. I don't know why we didn't pass it, because I was willing to vote for it. And I called the 12 members in that were no votes that night, and I told them, they didn't believe me. I said, tonight you're going to be held accountable. But most importantly, all these other members that want to vote to reduce taxes in the state of Michigan, they're going to get a voice. And I believe it was the first time in over 20 years that a speaker held a vote and actually recorded it and held every member accountable, put them on the record. And I truly believe that led the way to this discussion about eliminating the income tax in the state of Michigan, because it was not a discussion until we did that night.
Well, and I want to talk about the state income tax with other states, because when we talk about that, Florida comes up, right? Tennessee, South Dakota, but they haven't had state income tax in decades, right?
No, Tennessee just repealed it in the last 2 years.
Okay, so this is my question then, because you said you want to eliminate, you want to phase out. So I'm kind of in the middle, because where was that state economically to be able to do that? I think Michigan, and we all can agree with this, that their budget is so bloated, right? And it makes up such a big part of the budget that eliminating, we're going to have to make some drastic cuts, which I can agree with. But how do we do that economically as a state to continue to move Michigan forward? Just eliminate it off the bat. Is that even a plausible plan? Because the other states that have done it, I'm sure economically, and I don't know the answer to this, we're probably doing pretty well. We're like, you know what? We can probably eliminate it now to make us more attractive. I mean, where were they? They weren't in the position that we're at.
Well, I look at the taxable burden on the citizen, the percentage of their income, the overall taxable burden, and how that pie is cut up, and how we collect revenues. And in my view of the world, and Tom, I'm interested because you have the real experience. I'm a business guy. Yes, there is a difference in how to get things done in Lansing. I don't mind running into a wall, because I know if I hit it enough times, I'm just going to knock it over. It hurts like hell, but we're hard-headed enough.
Yeah.
And that's why we were in the arena. That's why we were willing to play the game versus deal with the true politics of it. So the overall tax burden of Florida for its citizens is lower than the overall tax burden of Michigan currently. The overall tax burden of Tennessee is lower than the overall tax burden of Michigan per citizen. And when you look at the dynamics of their population, the income earners, Michigan's got a really significant problem with no quick fix. Our fastest growing demographic is 65 and older. Those people are not income earners.
No.
They are the recipients of their hard work through their pensions, et cetera, but the overall tax dollar is going to, at some point, whipsaw and throw the burden on the citizen way out of whack. Or conversely, the legislature is going to say, we've got to raise taxes on businesses, which will continue to push big employers out of the state.
Well, it's like what they're doing with the restaurant industry and what they have done with COVID and everything else. These people just continue to get hammered by Whitmer and her folks.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I mean, you look at Florida right now. I mean, Governor DeSantis, we've discussed, they have no income tax.
Right.
Now they've started the conversation about phasing out their property tax.
Right.
Okay.
Legislative
Why
Yes.
have they
Yeah.
been able to do that? Their budget has continued to grow, not because they're raising taxes, but because of economic growth. They have more taxpayers. You've got to grow the pie.
Yeah.
And our pie is getting smaller and smaller every year because we are losing that population. And the population that we are using, as you just mentioned, it's the workers. It's the ones that are actually actually paying the taxes. Correct.
Help me understand, and this has always been a bone of contention, and I realize that some would say it's well-intended. When we collect tax dollars, we have all these different levies. I don't know that the citizens understand that those levies are directed into specific buckets, and those buckets are restricted with how those collections can be spent. So where I'm going with this is, and I've heard feedback from Republicans, Kevin, if you eliminated the personal income tax completely and relied on the citizens who would now have that $12 to $14 billion to spend their money and collect it as a sales tax, we would not be able to address the issues that income tax is collected for. My view, and I believe in keep it simple, stupid, is if government collects a buck, it should be able to spend that dollar wherever it needs it, not be restricted. So when it's restricted, they have to pass another tax. So now they got $2. one that's sitting in a bucket not being used, and that burden continues to be pushed on the citizen. You've been there. Help us understand the thought behind it and how do we fix it?
So that is a concern, and that's an issue. I mean, I will tell you, if I could go into Lansing right now and there were no constitutional or legal restrictions, okay, I would love to see Michigan go to some type of consumption or fair tax and eliminate all these other ones, okay? But you're right, or whoever told you that was right. Constitutionally, the way that it's written, the sales tax is restricted to go to certain areas, mainly to schools and local government. So to go to a consumption tax, or, and again, for argument's sake, if you wanted to get rid of the income tax and you want to get rid of property taxes, and somebody said, hey, let's increase the sales tax a little bit to make up for some of that revenue, it would be constitutionally restricted to go to schools and local government. So it would require a constitutional amendment and a vote of the people to take off those restrictions.
And I believe, is there not a constitutional convention being called for 26 as well?
There
This
is.
election?
There is.
You talk about an absolute rodeo that's going to go on from both sides. And my hope is that we get an improvement. Michigan's Constitution is very poorly written, my view, in a number of areas. Or another way of saying it, because I don't want to be critical all the time, is we have a lot of opportunity to improve our Constitution. Do you want to share maybe constitutionally any concepts that you might like to see changed in the Constitution?
Oh, I mean, there are several. I mean, you look at just some of the propositions that have passed over the past, past 7-8 years. I mean, this redistricting commission, complete nonsense.
Rubbish.
Complete nonsense. But my warning about the Constitutional Convention, because this question came up Friday night, we were in Roscommon, and somebody asked me about this and whether or not I supported it, and my answer was no. And they were kind of surprised at first. And I said, listen, there are many things like you just said that we need to address, and I believe could be written much better, be taken out of our Constitution, okay? But you have left-wing billionaires on the West Coast. And when I say the West Coast, I'm not talking Holland, Michigan. I'm talking about in Seattle, in Portland, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. And you know as well as I do, those billionaires, they spend 10, sometimes 20 to 1 what conservative billionaires spend. There are things that they have wanted to do in this state for decades. And I believe if we have a constitutional convention, you will see tens of millions of dollars pour in here from the left so they can make us the California of the Midwest.
Well, I think we're going to see tens of millions of dollars poured in here in the gubernatorial race because George Soros has already come out and said that he is supporting Jocelyn Benson. It's my belief. Listen to me, Mike Duggan. You are no independent. You are a Democrat.
That is true.
And when you got shunned by the Democratic Party, you had enough oomph behind you. And by the way, a really talented politician.
So he didn't just take it like Bernie Sanders?
He didn't just take it like Bernie Sanders.
No, he didn't just sit on the sidelines?
No.
But you look some of the, I mean, for instance,
I finished the
no,
thought,
go
though.
ahead.
Mike Duggan,
You're good.
Running as a Democrat has created a very unique problem.
Independent.
Or, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
is an independent. Thank you. Has created a very, very unique problem. And he is drawing significant funds from Republican donors. He is drawing significant funds, not from the George Soroses of the world who think they own the Democratic Party, but from other, maybe not billionaires, but millionaires in the Democratic Party.
It's mind-boggling because I guess I live on the different side of the state on how many Republicans are actually supporting him.
Oh, it's fascinating. And I truly, I can't understand it. I've asked the question. It's interesting. Anytime I talk to somebody who says, listen, Tom, I'd love to support you, but I'm going to support the mayor, or I'm looking at the mayor, I'll just look him in the eyes and I'll ask a very simple question. And that is, can you name one issue where he has ever deviated from the Democratic Party? And it just goes silent. And I asked a reporter this off the record. I said, have you guys ever asked him?
Was it Craig Mauger?
Where he deviates? I was a reporter off the record.
Craig.
And the
Craig,
response,
where's Craig?
the response that I got was, I think he said, unlike Democrats, he doesn't hate Donald Trump. And I said, that's not a policy position. It just makes you a decent human. I mean, he has not been forced to defend where he would deviate from there. I mean, would he sign right to work into law? Absolutely not. Would he expand school choice in the state of Michigan? Absolutely not. Would he allow for licensure reciprocity so that somebody who has been a 20-year journeyman electrician in Ohio or Indiana can come here and get a job immediately? Absolutely not. So he's not an independent. He is a Democrat.
Oh, there's no question that he's a Democrat. You brought something up that I think is really interesting, and I never understood it because I'm a policy guy. I'm a numbers guy, purely results. I like to take all the emotion out of the deal. And I'm going to go on record. I completely disagreed with Joe Biden, Barack Obama, but I didn't hate them. They were my president. I didn't agree in the beauty of our republic is that we have the ability to change our leadership if enough people disagree. And this concept of having to hate, and I hear reporter after reporter after reporter focus on the emotional versus the factual side of what's going on. The emotional side, here's an example, is Detroit's improving. And yes, Detroit is improving for about a 12-block radius.
That's exactly what I've been, when people ask me, has he been a good mayor? I said, yes. And then I let them silence for 3 seconds and I say, for 12 blocks of the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of blight. I mean, Kevin, it just came out this last weekend. Over half of the children in Detroit right now are living in poverty. That is a number that's gone up. Only 11% of the third graders in the city of Detroit can read at a proficient level. Those are questions he is going to have to answer.
Well, he's been given a free pass, and we can go on because we talk about violent crime, and it's a bone of contention with me because people like to say, well, it's down 20%. And I like to say, well, okay, that's great. But at the end of the day, the city of Detroit is still the 6th highest murder rate city in America. And that's too high for me.
The question you have to ask is this. When the Lions went from an 0-16 team to a 4-12 team, were you happy with that?
It's a great question. The answer for me is no.
I mean, that's my point is, you mean violent crime might be down, but when you are still one of the top 5 or 6 highest crime cities in the entire country, that is nothing to brag about. So instead of holding a press conference and bragging about how it's down 20%, you look in the camera and you say, it might be down, but let me tell you something. I'm still disappointed. This is not good enough. We cannot continue to be in the top 10 highest crime cities in the country.
Well, that's transparency. And that's really what we need in Michigan. My dad had a saying about politicians, and he was not a fan. He would have rolled over in his grave. He died before I ran for governor. If I ran for governor,
would he have voted for you or me?
He would have probably voted for you because he wouldn't have wanted me to be governor.
Had to go in there.
He wasn't a fan of politicians, and his saying was, if you take all the bullshit out of the bag, when a politician comes to you, take all the bullshit out of the bag, what do you have left?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And again, my analogy of scraps, calling it filet. Gretchen Whitmer is on social media, on the news, saying that we passed a great bipartisan budget for the state of Michigan. And I look at it, and I'm sorry, Speaker Hall, I think you worked hard, but that budget wasn't good enough for me.
I want to get into the budget here because you and I talked about that. But looking at Duggan and his strategy, it's pretty sound. He skips the primary, right? He goes right into the general, no debates. And I want to talk about also, for some reason, the Michigan GOP is putting on 3 debates over the next 60 days, I think it is. Way too early. When we were running, we had, I think, 5 or 6 at the end of the primary in May, June, and July. and they're already doing debates. What are your thoughts on that right now, of being almost a year out from the primary, and they already have 3 debates for anyone, it seems like, who's running?
Yeah, I mean, listen, and I think we have shown this. I mean, I'm here today. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have shown over the past 3 months, I am willing to talk to anybody about problems facing our state. I love to get our platform out there, and I also love to hear and learn from others. But I'll tell you this, as we've traveled the state and we've held our town halls, we've spoken on podcasts, hit the media circuit, we've never charged anybody to hear about our ideas and talk about how to turn Michigan around. I think my biggest frustration right now with the debate and the way this has come together is the fact that our hardworking delegates are going to be charged $50 per person to come into the room to hear about our ideas and hear who they want to vote for. And I don't ever recall there being a debate at any level where people were charged to come into the room and hear candidates' ideas.
It's a money grab.
That is my biggest problem with it right now. I do not believe that anybody should be charged to come into the room and hear me talk about my ideas.
And I like on the flyer, it says invited. So they're kind of calling out the people. I have a feeling John James is not going to come.
Well, you got to look strategically and say, what's the value to the candidate? And
I know what the value of the consultants is.
that's a totally different deal. And we can talk a lot about.
Oh, you know how I feel about this.
It's a business that needs to be eliminated.
Yep.
In my view. Sorry. Tom's consultant is sitting over on there.
He's my campaign manager, not consultant.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Thank you
All
for
right.
the clarification.
You actually earn a living
There
there.
you
So
go.
I
You're a
appreciate
really
you.
nice guy, and you're actually working for the money that he's paying you. So congratulations. I'm not so sure the consultants are when they're flying around.
But you imagine if you just announced, because you announced in November, right? When you ran.
Last time, yeah.
Yeah, last time. So imagine you announce it, and then we have 3 debates right off the bat. I mean, how many debates do they plan to have if we're already having 3? Are we going to have 10 more?
I don't know. I didn't ask the question. I just got the phone call and was basically asked, we need you to show up 3 times in the next month.
Do you think James will show up?
No.
I mean,
it's hard for me to speak for him, but
certainly
he wasn't on the panel
in Mackinac City.
In Mackinac, so that I would just say history would tell me no. But again, you'd have to ask him that question.
Well, I think that, people need to realize that in the way elections roll out, that John James has a name recognition lead.
Sure.
Tom, you've been in the private sector for how many years now?
7.
Okay. And people forget, or people focus on specific issues that may benefit you or may be critical of you when you were back in the legislature. Whether we like it or not, James has been the beneficiary from the Republican Congressional Committee of almost $85 million of free advertising.
Over 2 cycles,
That's a
right?
lot of name ID.
Over 4 years.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot of name ID. And think of, and I'd say this to John, because John's a young guy, talented guy.
Good-looking guy, well-spoken.
Absolutely.
West Point grad, Apache helicopter pilot.
He checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. But John still needs to earn people's votes, even though he has name recognition. And he needs to, in my view, give the respect to the other candidates in debate to not just have a stump speech. Because I'm going to tell you, I wasn't as good as you were at your stump speech. You were fabulous. John James, the first time you hear him speak, is really good. Tom, you're polished. You're an attorney. You have been in front of juries and judges and things like. I never had that. I grew up cleaning toilets and working in a car shop. Completely different way of communicating. So these stump speeches are a waste of time to me. These Lincoln Day dinners where they have people run around and, get to listen to 5 candidates speak for 15 minutes, total joke.
If you get 15 minutes.
If you get 15 minutes. Yeah, are a joke. They're well-intended, but you can hide what is important. And I applaud you, Tom, for this.
Thank you.
I applaud you for this.
I believe we as Republicans, what did Donald Trump do last fall? He presented a transparent, positive vision for where he wanted to take this country. And listen, there were those that didn't agree with some of his policy positions. And when I get pushback today on some of his positions, I say, listen, one thing about him, he was transparent.
He
told you exactly what he was going to do when he got elected, and to his credit, he is doing it. And that's what we want to do. And listen, the Democrats, they gave us a playbook for what happens when you wake up every day and you are void of a vision, you don't know where you want to take the country, and you're only focused on hatred of one person, you lose.
Yeah.
And Republicans are not immune to that. If we wake up every day and our only focus is hatred of Democrats, hatred of Gretchen Whitmer, hatred of Jocelyn Benson, and we don't let the state know what we stand for and we don't have a positive vision, we lose. That's why we released this 2 weeks ago, because I want people to know, even if you don't agree with me on every issue, I want people to look at me and say, this is somebody who wants to do the job.
And I think people are looking for that.
And I applaud you for that. But you know what else you've done is you've given people the power. We, the people, have the power now to say, you're the one who put it in writing. Are you a hypocrite? Are
Absolutely.
you a liar?
Hold accountable.
You're willing to be held accountable. And isn't that what people are asking for in politics?
And I think also, too, is with that accountability, what happens with these debates when you have too many, and it just kind of takes the value out of them. I think you should have 2 debates at the end. 2 debates with relevant candidates, not everyone who's running. Let's at least have it after you collect the signatures, for crying out loud.
Well, and I tell you what else would be nice, and I'm thinking out loud here. Okay, I just had this thought as we're sitting here talking. Okay, we are having a thorough discussion about issues and how best to move our state forward. Wouldn't it be even better for 3 or 4 of the candidates to sit around and have a round table or a fireside chat or some type of podcast like what we're having now with a moderator? That's actually, instead of all these, you get 30 seconds to answer this question.
Correct.
And this person gets 15 seconds to respond. Let's sit around a circle and let's really talk about the issues at hand.
I actually called that out several months ago. Wouldn't it be nice if anyone who is interested in running for this type of office, let's get them in a room and do exactly what you just said.
What is it?
And then get behind the right candidate. There's
Correct.
1 or 2, that's fine. But to have, how many are in now? I don't know, 6, 7, 8 again?
It's a waste. And you know what it does? Unfortunately, all right, and our process says that anybody can run, and I'm going to applaud them for dipping their toe in the water. I'm going to applaud them for that. Takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of energy. It's a sacrifice on your family, et cetera, et cetera. Now let's get to really what's important. For me, the general statement is government is failing in Michigan. My state is deteriorating before my eyes, and I want somebody who can start to fix it, who is willing to articulate a plan. And what I get concerned about is, and we talked about this, Garrett, in the last election, we ended up putting forth a candidate that was a sitting duck. The Democrats got the candidate that they wanted in our last gubernatorial election based on that person's position on certain social issues. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. That was their belief. They went out there. They said what their belief was. Was it electable? It is, and that's different than, is it what we wanted? Well, let me just finish this one thought, because for the people that say, oh, that sounds like a rhino talking, kiss my ass. I'm no rhino. All right? I want better for you and for our state. And it's insulting that you think that you can dictate to people your negotiable position. And anything less than that's not acceptable. But we put forth an ideologue candidate, and we suffered the second largest defeat in the history of the Republican Party in our state. So we've got all these people running, and it's going to come down to two people. And that 5% of the voters, 10% of the voters, 11% of the voters that stick with their local guy or their friend and focus on that, prevent us from sending someone forward who can win in November, and we've got to stop doing it.
And a qualified candidate.
What are your thoughts?
And this is exactly why we are focused on issues that I believe matter to the people of the state, okay? I am the one candidate right now. I think I heard one of the candidates started talking about it a couple of weeks ago, so clearly we're pushing on this issue, but mental health reform. I am telling you, Kevin, I don't need to look at polls to determine whether or not that resonates with people. Every time I walk into a room, it doesn't matter if there's 10 there or if there's 1,000. Every time I mention the need to address mental health reform, I see every single head go back and forth because every person in the state has been impacted either directly or indirectly. But you look at my past, I brought this up last night when we were in Oakland County. Did you know, so when I was a prosecutor, back when I was a prosecutor from 2007 to 2010, Michigan had the strictest expungement laws in the entire country. If you had two crimes...
Explain what an expungement...
So, somebody commits a crime. So they have a felony or a misdemeanor on their record. And I'm not talking about CSCs. I'm not talking about murder. We are talking about, somebody does something really stupid. They get a drug conviction or they have a larceny conviction, okay? It used to be in Michigan that if you had a felony and a misdemeanor, you were done. You couldn't get them off your record. And I looked at this and listen, there's nobody that's going to be tougher on crime than me. But I looked at this and I thought, if somebody has two convictions on their record, what good are they to us as a society if they can't get a job and they can't be a functioning member of society? So I actually introduced a bill to expand expungements in the state of Michigan so that these people could get jobs. Driver responsibility fees. The legislature and then Governor Granholm, you want to talk about a dumb law. They passed a law. It was a complete money grab, basically said they identified 20 or 25 moving violations and basically said, if a police officer pulls you over, the best example is no proof of insurance. So you get pulled over, you're fully insured, but you just can't find proof of it in your glove box. Police officer would write you a ticket. You'd go to court, you'd pay your fine, you'd walk out. 6 months later, the state of Michigan would send you a $1,000 bill in the mail and say, we are deeming you a bad driver because you couldn't find your proof of insurance. What did that do for the working class? They could not afford it. So we created a group of citizens, 350,000 of them across the state, 75,000 of them in the city of Detroit, that could not get a driver's license. And when I was a prosecutor,
I drove illegally,
or had to drive illegally. Correct. Right. And when I was a prosecutor in Flint, we would do misdemeanor pretrials on Fridays, and I would see dozens, if not hundreds of people standing outside saying, listen, just tack it on in my bill. I'm never going to be able to pay it. I've got to move on. So when I became speaker, one of my top priorities wasn't just eliminating those fees, but it was to say, this is wrong. It never should have happened. We are going to give amnesty to every one of these individuals, and we are going to give you your driver's license back, and we are going to let you to get a job.
Does that mean you're soft on crime,
Imagine,
Tom?
No, it means it's common sense.
Absolutely.
It's common sense. But here's where I'm going with this. Many of these individuals, as I mentioned, they were impacted in the urban areas, Detroit, Flint, Pontiac, Saginaw. Imagine nominating a candidate who next October can go into Detroit, stand on that debate stage with Mike Duggan and say, who was the person standing on this stage that fought and gave you your driver's license back? Who was the person that fought to ensure that you could get that crime off your record so you could get a job? It wasn't him. It wasn't her. It was me.
So
we've got to put up our most electable candidate. I am the one candidate that can go into those urban areas or go anywhere across the state and talk about common sense issues that we tackled when I was Speaker of the House.
You said her, Jocelyn Benson?
I believe it's going to be Jocelyn Benson.
Yeah, I believe
has she been quiet? I have not seen anything on the X feed about what she's kind of went dark. Like no conversation, nothing. I haven't seen anything.
Well, I think when you're that far out ahead, in your primary.
She's like running from the basement like John.
She's the Democratic candidate. There's no doubt.
She shut off comments on her post. You know that?
She is the Democratic candidate. There is no question in my mind. Obviously, Mike Duggan will be the independent candidate, and
unless you run as an independent.
How would that work? Could someone else announce as an independent?
Then would you have a primary
and
with that
avoid all the
independent?
primaries, or would the independents have to primary each other?
No, my understanding is you could have 50 independents and there is no primary as long as you can collect the signatures. I
That would
believe
be
you
fun.
could go
We
on.
should
I don't
have
believe
you
there's
run.
such thing as an independent primary.
Well,
Oh, we can't have an independent
The
primary? Can't we have a
Republicans-
debate?
I think you just go on.
Oh.
Well, you could have the debate, but I don't think there's anything legally, to exclude it to just one independent on the ballot.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of
Maybe both of us go independent, see what happens. Duke it out again.
tag team again. That'd be great. Big time wrestling.
That's right.
So
All
you
you
little
Rinke.
mission maniacs.
That's right. That would be a lot more fun.
But to go back to your original question, you're right. And that's why we are focused on the issues that matter. I'll tell you another big one that's resonating is we have been very clear, and it's right here in this manual. We've got a section focused on accountability. The idea that the executive branch and the legislative branch is not subject to FOIA is wrong. We've got to fix that. But you hear these candidates, we're talking about talking points and electability, okay? And you'll hear these candidates, they'll try to be Donald Trump. And I've told them, listen, this is a compliment to the president. He is the Michael Jordan of Republican politics, okay?
Yeah.
There's only one, okay?
Yeah.
The NBA has tried for 25 years to find the next Michael Jordan. It's never going to happen. So anybody that tries to be the president is nothing but a pretender because there's only one. That's it. End of story. But you'll get these candidates, they'll stand on the stage and they'll say, we're going to doge state government. And I've asked the question, okay, what does that mean to you? And they're completely
Crickets.
silent because they don't know what it means.
Well, they don't know.
And I've said, you know what?
Exactly.
By the way, either does the federal
For
government.
state government, I said, let's go a step further. If you're going to doge state government, that would force the legislature to go into the budget and find the fraud, waste, and abuse. Instead of doing that, why don't we just start over? Why don't we go back to zero-based budgeting and force me, the executive, to justify why every single line item should be in that budget? That's in our accountability plan.
I think
still
these
have line item veto.
Yes, the governor does have line item veto powers.
So in other words, Tom Leonard today is governor, and you get this budget put on your desk. You can go into that budget and cross, if you chose to,
Correct.
cross out the crap. And there is billions of dollars of crap. Would you commit to doing that?
Yes, if I thought something was not worthy of us spending, if I thought something was worthy or not worthy of us taking a dollar out of somebody's pocket and spending it, yes, I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. So, well, let's go.
But again, I was going to say, I don't mean to interrupt, but I would hope it wouldn't come to that because again, I'm the only candidate that's made this promise. When I'm elected governor, I've joked with legislators in the room, but I'm serious about this. There will be no summer vacation. They are going to be spending hours that first summer working on the budget because again, we're going to go to zero-based budgeting. I want them to force me and my department heads to sit before them in a committee and justify why every single line item is going to be put in that budget or why we're asking them to put it in the budget.
So you're way more eloquent than I was. I just said I was going to make him go to work. And I didn't identify
That's the executive in you. That's
what
executives do.
You know what? We're going to work. We're going to, all the bullshit's out of the bag.
Put our head down and grind.
We're going to grind every single line on it. I have a pet issue. And I know that this issue is coming up with every candidate. I have a solution that actually works. And we just passed a budget that rewarded the teachers union, gave raises to teachers across the board, gave more money to school districts that are failing. And in fact, there's over $400 million of slush fund. At the same time, they cut autism funding, which is significant in our schools. At the same time, would you believe the Michigan budget that was just passed cut literacy funding?
And we're what rank in literacy?
49th.
That's not good.
17% or 11% of third graders in Detroit. But what's really important is that less than 50% of third graders in the state can read at grade level. We are graduating 50% of our seniors, and they can't read at the 8th grade level, let alone the 12th grade level. What the heck's going on? It's a phonics-based, one-on-one tutorial program. We have for years given the teachers union and for years given local communities the right to say, we're going to try. You know what? Trying implies we can fail and it's okay. We don't need to fail when it comes to reading literacy.
Especially with our
beyond
kids.
basics.
Yes.
I think our kids, you think our kids, because our kids are your kids.
They are the foundation. I mean, you pull up to if you purchase a home and the siding's faded, it needs the home needs new siding or it needs a new driveway, and the foundation is also crumbling, and you only have the money to fix one of them. Are you going to paint it so that you look good to your neighbors, or are you going to fix the foundation? You fix the foundation.
Otherwise, you don't have a home.
We need to correct.
So what would you do with reading literacy? Talk to me.
I've said let's adopt the Mississippi Miracle model. Okay, and I the reason I look at that model, not only has it worked, but also you're looking at a state that is far poorer than Michigan and spends much less on education than Michigan does. So it takes this whole idea that we need to spend $30,000 per child to get them to read.
Does
out of the
Mississippi
equation.
have minorities?
Yes.
Do they have poor cities?
Yes.
Do those kids learn how to read
They
in
have
Mississippi?
every problem that Michigan does.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not. They do.
Really?
So what do they do? So Mississippi 10 years ago, they were 49 out of 50. They were where we're at now. And with the right reforms, they went to the top 10. First things first, what did they do? They identified which students were struggling earlier. So there were 3 assessments per year, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, identified those students. Once they figured out or found that a student was struggling, targeted support with literacy coaches and tutors in those classrooms to help the teachers. I mean, I've been very clear about this. Many love to poke at teachers, and we need accountability for teachers, but you cannot expect any teacher that's in a classroom with 30 kids to be able to give each of them the attention that they need. High literacy, or, targeted support for literacy coaches. Third thing, they drew a line in the sand and they said, you know what? If a child is not proficient in the 3rd grade, we are not just going to advance them to the 4th grade. We cannot do it. We've got to hold them back. Fourth thing, if you are going to do that, you better empower parents in this process. You better make certain that they're part of this process, and you better make certain that there's communication. So there were laws that basically said, listen, we've got to communicate with parents up front. We've got to let them know when their child is struggling. We've got to make certain that we've got support for them. If we've got to hold them back, if there's summer school, we've got to have transportation available. They made certain that every resource was available for parents to ensure that there was no excuse when their child couldn't read. Again, Mississippi did it with the right reforms. If Mississippi could do it, we can do it here in Michigan.
Just curious, because it's such a different ball game from back when we were growing up to now. Do you know by chance what they did with the phones with the kids? Did they not allow those kids to have phones in their rooms and stuff? Are you aware of that?
I don't know.
Because that's a big thing, I think, and we're going to find out more and more, and the research is starting to come up that how catastrophic the phones are for these kids.
They're a problem.
And go ahead.
I want to go back, though, this past year, and this is a travesty. There were 386,000 Michigan children who couldn't read at grade level in K through 12. 386,000. Tom, I picked and I cited when I brought this up when I was running in the previous gubernatorial election, Massachusetts, a very liberal state that had bottom 10 reading efficiency. And they implemented a third-party phonics-based approach in Massachusetts. To this day continues to be a top 5 state in reading literacy. And folks, Massachusetts is doing way better than Michigan.
Is that implemented? Do they work with nonprofits, or is it actually in the schools? If you get what I'm asking.
And I want to go into that because, here's why saying, oh, the teachers can handle it is a fallacy. The union likes it. They say, give us more money. To be a phonics tutor requires certification, requires ongoing education. And A, teachers don't have the certifications. B, they're not willing to either pay for them themselves. It needs to be a third party. And you know why? Because I don't think we're going to be firing teachers for not being able to teach or tutor kids in phonics, but we can hold a third party available and accountable. And when we do that, phonics-based tutoring for every socio-ethnic and economic class provides reading success of over 90%. All of the social failures don't make a damn bit of difference. If you tutorially approach these children with phonics-based training, we will have 90% success. If we are above 90%, we are the #1 state in Michigan. Last thing I'm going to say on it, because I'm not trying, this is about you, but third graders are important. Michigan doesn't teach reading after the third grade in any of their public schools. To accelerate the success in the future for our state, I would propose to you that you look at third graders and measure them. But then you go to seniors who have graduated, and in 10 weeks of tutorial-based phonics teachings, the average increase in grade level proficiency is 2.4 years. In 10 weeks, we could graduate today's kids who can't read, 50% can't read, and we can catch them up in a summer program before we put them in college, and it can all be revenue neutral because in this budget, we gave over $400 million as slush fund to the teachers union and to the education groups that would handle one-on-one tutoring for the kids who need it. Do it for third graders, but do it for the seniors because we've got 9 years before those third graders are going to be able to start showing the improvement.
Well, and I met with a nonprofit early on because they were excited that I was really focused on third grade reading.
Do you mind me asking which one? Or
my goodness, I can't even think of the name. They're out of Lansing. I will get you the name. It was
mine is Beyond Basics.
Yeah, so I know what Beyond Basics is. I know Pam. She's a great lady. No, this was a different one. I can't think the name off the top of my head. It was early on in the campaign about 4 months ago. I didn't even know they existed. They were like 2 blocks away from the Capitol. And I met with them, and basically what they do is they help tutor students, but the main thing they do is they educate and teach teachers. They coach them on how to teach reading, if you will, on the phonics, the science of reading. Okay. And they were telling me so my kids go to Lansing Christian, and they were talking about one of the teachers that came in, they took their course, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks. And this teacher, within 1 year, they went from 20% of their class not being, where they needed to be for reading. And I think it was down less than this. It was like 3-4% of the class within 1 year. And it was all because that teacher learned the science of reading and how to teach it.
Well, it's really interesting. And I just found this out, in fact, in the last week. There is a national company that prepares curriculums for public schools across America. And this national company is contracted by school districts. And they provide the books, they provide all the training manuals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you say, interesting. You know what their new division is?
What's that?
Phonics-based reading training. And here's my concern.
And is that what Pam does?
No,
She does not. Okay.
Pam is a private business not associated with those folks. And that's what I propose we should use in Michigan. Instead of going to a national provider who gets state contracts for curriculum and services to teachers, I think this is an instance where we go to the third-party provider because we can hold them, like you want to be held accountable, we can hold them accountable. And interestingly enough, if a teacher, you cited a good one, is successful, great. But if there's a teacher that isn't as successful as your child's, they can't be fired. They can't be reprimanded. And by the way, they're getting, based on this last budget, a bonus just for being a teacher, no matter what the results are. So be careful, because all of a sudden, reading literacy, not only in Michigan, but nationwide, is this huge, huge issue. And isn't it interesting that the largest provider of the failed curriculum, these are the folks, guys, that wrote the DEI curriculum in our public schools. These are the folks that wrote the gender neutral curriculums that are in our public schools. Now all of a sudden want the state contract for phonics-based reading? I don't trust them. I don't like them. Let's have these third-party providers.
And just speaking, you said out of the budget, they took the helping the autistic kids out of the budget?
They cut that dramatically, and they cut literacy dramatically.
Which is insane, because now I think the number, it goes down every single year, but it's 1 in every 31 kids are diagnosed on the autistic spectrum. So you're just cutting that budget?
It goes up every year.
It goes up. Excuse me. It's going up. It continues to go up. Back when we were growing up, it was hardly anything, and they have excuses, and that's a whole different podcast. But that's insanity. Those kids, we're just cutting the ability, which is going to put stress on the classroom, which is going to put stress on the teacher. I mean, as a chiropractor, I see a lot of teachers as patients. Yeah. And 15 years ago, they would get the deer in the headlights around Thanksgiving saying, I need a break, right? I need Thanksgiving break. I need Christmas break. These teachers come into my clinic 2 weeks into the season here in the school, and they need a break. They have the deer in the headlights already. They're stressed out.
Well, if you're a kid, and I don't care what grade level you are, if you're a kid that gets put in a situation with other kids and there's something that attracts their attention, but you don't have that ability to focus on what they're focused on, what do you do as a kid? You act out.
Yep.
You disrupt. And not because you're, in our day, we called it the Joker. We called it these kids are struggling, and reading, if you can't read, you can't do anything.
Yeah, you're done.
And all of dealing with the symptoms, all of this crap around the edges just doesn't work. There's a solution. Let's implement the damn thing.
And that's why I call it the foundation. As a former prosecutor, I can tell you this. If a child has to drop out of school because they're illiterate, you have created a pipeline to a welfare check or a prison cell.
Yeah.
End of story.
50% of our kids now, Tom.
End of story.
Yeah. 50%.
And that is our future. In going back, to the original, when we started this, why would any business want to locate here, or why would any business want to expand if they look at this state and they say, my goodness, if I invest billions of dollars in that state, within the next 15 years, I'm going to be dealing with a group of young adults that cannot read.
Yeah.
They're not going to come here.
Big business looks at that. There's actually a list that they go through. And interestingly enough, at the top of that list is education and the quality, or literacy, which is the defining factor. I've said this before. Are unemployed in Detroit, okay? And there are a lot of unemployed people in Detroit. Over 80% of the unemployed people in Detroit can't read a job application form to fill it out. How are you ever going to employ them if they can't fill out the form?
Yep.
When they go into a work environment, they can't read the emergency signs or the safety signs. The liability that you are exposed to as a business operation is huge, because you're forced to take people who can't be successful, and then you make them fail.
I want to move on, but
I'd say
finish
this
up
is-
your
I'll
thought.
close. This
Yeah,
is
we hit a lot on
this is, and
education.
again, I've said this multiple times. This is the civil rights issue of our day.
Literacy.
Yes.
Yeah, agree.
When you have half your children cannot read, that is an absolute crisis. And again, I'm flabbergasted that you're not seeing other candidates out there talking about this with real policy solutions.
I don't
they
think-
have no policy.
They don't have no depth. They don't know what to do.
Zero depth. They
None.
can't even spell phonics.
So we got you obviously with your elimination of the state income tax, property tax. We talked about education. Obviously, I think is going to be huge in this next election cycle. I want to get to the budget. We didn't really spend a lot of time on the budget that was just passed. You briefly talked about it, and I want to get into energy, which is also very huge. The budget. What is the positives and negatives of this thing, in your view, of what just was passed in the state of Michigan?
I'd say the one positive, and I'm going to have to update my policy manual now because it's one of the issues that we had for funding roads. The one positive that I look at, for years, Michigan, we mentioned the sales tax and how it's constitutionally restricted to go to other places. There has been a sales tax on gas for decades. And essentially the people of this state are paying at the pump, and the state's collecting $1 billion per year at the pump that doesn't go into fixing our roads. They did fix that. So they eliminated the sales tax on gas. And what they did is it wasn't a tax increase on gas, but they increased the gas tax up to where the sales tax would have been. So the citizen doesn't see a difference at the pump. But now that money is no longer restricted to go other places. It can go to roads. So you will see an extra $1 billion per year going to roads without a tax increase.
Does that mean she may
that was
fix
a
the
good,
damn roads?
that was a good, well,
That was the smoke and mirrors
Yeah.
switcheroo.
So we finally
That-
got
that
in
was a
there at the
good-
last.
I'm
That-
sorry,
that
go-
is a good thing.
that's a good.
Let
Yep.
me ask, did they address, because a lot of people don't realize, if you have a gas burning vehicle, that you're paying a tax to be on the road because your vehicle wears on the road. Did they address the issue of electric vehicles being assessed a usage tax?
I do not believe they did.
I don't believe they
I don't
did
believe
either.
they did. I mean, don't quote me that 100%, but I do not believe they did.
And again, another big loophole, that why, after the government gave you 10 or 12 or 15,000 bucks of taxpayer money so you could buy an electric vehicle, do you not have to pay the tax on the road?
Do you think they did that intentionally to punish
Absolutely,
the
they
gas
did it
folks?
intentionally.
Yeah, the green scam, right? The green energy.
It's part of the
scam.
green scam.
I think the bad was these tax increases on business with decoupling. I mean, in the big, beautiful bill, businesses got some really neat benefits that were, state taxes tied to the federal taxes,
Correct.
if you will. And they basically decoupled and took those benefits away to help pay for this. And I believe it was about a $450 million tax increase on business.
Yeah. You know what else they didn't address, which really bothers me? And real quickly, a description. Let's say you are a community and you want to build a bridge, or you're going to improve the bridge in your community that is on a local road. And so you go to the state and they give you a grant. Okay. And let's say the estimate to fix the bridge is $10 million, just hypothetical. And you get a grant from the state for 10 million bucks. Happens all the time. But they fix the bridge for $6 million. Do you realize that the community is penalized if they don't spend the $10 million on the project? And it's a negative when they ask for a grant in the future. And I'm going to give you an example of a bridge
Doesn't
in
make any
Birmingham,
sense.
Michigan, that came in under budget, and the city ended up having custom-made light poles to eat up,
Just to hit the
mark.
money.
just to
Yeah.
spend the money. They had to go out and have custom-made light poles made, custom-made rails made. They had to put in Puwabic tile on the freaking bridge because they didn't want to get penalized in their other requests to the state for doing a good job.
If that
for
would have
saving
happened,
taxpayer dollars.
if that would have happened in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where my clinic is, the homeless people would have set up camp there and they would have spray painted. Just to let you know what I'm dealing with at my
Well,
clinic.
maybe they should come spray paint this. It's a beautiful bridge, I'll tell you what. I mean, but ridiculous. And I actually went to the city and said, what the hell are you doing? They said, we have to spend this money. We are penalized by both the state government and the federal government for
That's
coming in
insane.
under budget.
That's utterly, that's the frustration with government.
Yes.
What part of the budget are you just really upset about, Tom, that the Republicans did?
Well, again, you had the decoupling issue.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one. Another one, I just don't understand how, and it's nothing I'm upset about. I'm just perplexed. I don't understand how this is going to work. This massive surcharge on cannabis. I mean, listen, I've always opposed the legalization of marijuana in the state of Michigan. Okay. But I don't know how you think by putting this massive tax on them and driving them out of the state, how you're going to have this consistent revenue stream to fund roads. I don't know how that's going
They're
to
going to
work.
go out
So,
of business.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so they are going to be back within the next couple of years looking for a new source of revenue because I don't know how this works.
Well, Michigan is the #1 consumer per capita of cannabis in the country.
I despise the smell of that when I'm on the road.
We are the #1 consumer. So think of this. We made cannabis legal. The people spoke. I disagree with it as well.
And I'm with you. That's
Okay,
I
the
was
people
I was
spoke.
opposed to it, but they spoke. It's in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I like the medical marijuana deal.
Well-
I did like that, but
well,
not the legalization.
But let's we had before we made it legal.
Yeah.
We had a problem because it is a controlled substance at the federal level and controlled substance at the state level. So you're committing a crime by growing it, smoking it, distributing it, selling it, whatever. When we made it legal, we looked to say, okay, we're gonna govern it. Now we're putting the legal businesses out of business. We've created a false source of revenue, which will increase spending, which will force the legislature to react to increase taxes on the people to pay for that lack of revenue. And you know what else we just did? We just said to the illegal pot industry, you're back in business. People aren't going to stop smoking dope, folks. They're just going to buy it from their neighbor. And you're not going to collect the taxes. And we're going to have the same problems that we had before.
Do they still say dope?
Dope.
Do they still say that?
think they called it dope?
Do they? Younger people in the room, they call it dope still?
It's dope.
I'm one of the old guys now. So
Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the term, but I just haven't heard it in a while. Like,
Yeah.
I smoke a lot of dope.
You know,
Do they
what-
still
what I-
use that?
Everybody in the room,
I need to know.
nobody calls it dope.
No.
Okay, so I'm dating myself.
Mary
How about
Jane.
this? How about this? Instead of calling it cannabis, let's call it ganja.
Yeah, there you go. Make it fancy.
Ganja.
The new merch.
Yeah. So keep going on the budget.
So that, one of the good, one of the good, if you will. My understanding is they did eliminate the governor's SOAR fund.
Whoa.
Now, I am told, I heard yesterday there was a quote unquote agreement to discuss some type of legislation to attract businesses to the state as part of that agreement. Now,
You know they have
I would,
something
yeah, I was
figured
going to say,
out.
I would like to see what that legislation is going
Yeah.
to entail, because again, I've been very clear. We need to end corporate welfare.
Yeah.
Done.
We
Over.
both stood
this
up
I-
against
this
that,
idea
yeah.
that we are going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to certain select companies is wrong. It's time for
Tax-paying dollars.
It's time. Yes. Tax paying dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, I've, but the analogy I use, imagine, you said you live in Kalamazoo. Imagine you've used the same grocery store for the last 20, 30 years. And one day you wake up and there's this sign on the door, free groceries for anyone that hasn't been here before.
Yeah.
How's that going to make you feel?
I never thought about it that way, but you're
I mean,
exactly
you've got
right.
businesses that have poured their blood, sweat, and tears. They've gone through the Great
Yep.
Recession. They went through the stiffest lockdowns in the entire country. They're still here. They're clawing, they're scratching, they're fighting every single day, and they wake up, and the state of Michigan is taking tax dollars from them and giving it to outside companies. That's wrong.
I got a question.
This is going to be good, isn't it?
This is a tough question, Tom, and it's going to put you on the spot, or at least I hope it'll put you on the spot.
I'm excited.
Donald Trump is an anomaly because as president, he is stretching, challenging, pushing the executive authority due to a complacency in the legislature that we have never seen before. And it's made the swamp really uncomfortable. Now, no one's going to be like Donald Trump as far as the persona, but their actions to stretch that power, to wield that power, to change a bad scenario. And it's my belief that Michigan has a bad scenario. Yes, there are some nice things going on. Yes, Michigan is my favorite state in America. I think Michigan's going backwards with significant problems that can and should be addressed. How willing are you to take the executive power of governor and flex muscle? Because as a lawyer and as a previous lobbyist, you like to reach, what's the word when you meet in the middle?
Consensus? What do you
Compromise.
A compromise. And it's how you're wound. Now, when I talk to you off camera, I think you got it in you. But I want you on camera to tell me, how much muscle are you willing? Because if you can't kiss them and get it done, I want you to kick them in the ass and get it done if it's the right thing for Michigan. Are you willing to really go out there and do that?
Absolutely. And it's, again, it is in here, Kevin. But I think the biggest thing that I can do as the state's next governor is to do everything in my power and actually stretch as far as I can, giving power back to the people of the state. So what do I mean? You don't hear governors talk about this, or people running for governor talk about this, okay? How many times throughout the year do you see departments promulgate their own rules in these departments? I want to push the legislature on day one. Let's take every single law that allows these departments to promulgate their own rules. Let's get rid of that clause in the legislation. And let's say if a rule is going to be enacted, it's got to come through the legislature. That will strip the power of Eagle. You know, what I want to do is I really want to push the envelope when it comes to holding government accountable. Okay. So we've mentioned it. We will subject the executive to FOIA. If the legislature doesn't pass it, we're going to do it. But I can tell you this, hold me accountable, record this right now.
So you're doing it whether the legislature
if the legislature
says yes or
doesn't do it, if they say no, we are going to shame them. And then if ultimately they won't do it, I will do it for the executive myself. It's going to happen. I mean, when I was speaker, you want to talk about pushing the envelope. When I was speaker, I made certain that every single one of our staffers' salaries, job titles, job description, and name was online and updated every single month for the world to see. They weren't happy about it, but I told them, you work for the taxpayers. We're going to do that for state employees. I talked about zero-based budgeting. No more excuses with the legislature saying, oh goodness, I didn't know that was in the budget. No, we're going to zero it out. And I want them to force me and my department heads to justify why every single line item is going back into that budget. So if anybody ever has a problem with a line item that's in the budget, their legislator is not going to be able to say, I didn't know it was in there. Their constituent's going to say, didn't they zero that out? And didn't you have an opportunity to look at that line item? I believe I'm the only candidate in the history of the state that's ever ran for governor that has said, when I get into office, the one budget that I want to double is the Office of Auditor General. The Auditor General is the nonpartisan watchdog. They are the ears and eyes on the ground. They are the investigators that investigate state government and departments every single day. To go back to our sports analogies, I wasn't good enough to play football in college, but I did play in high school. I can tell you this, and I'm certain you guys would agree. When you were playing an inferior team on a Friday or Saturday, you and the team, you didn't bring your A game every day that week at practice. Players showed up late. They went through the motions. They weren't lifting weights late at night. But when the playoffs started, You brought your A game every single day. Imagine if we doubled the staff of the Auditor General and doubled the amount of investigators on the ground that were watching over departments every single day. Your department heads in the executive branch and every single one of those staffers would be forced to bring their A game every single day. That's where I want to push the envelope, is holding government accountable.
Yeah, the power of the governor is undefined in Michigan. People don't realize. And I like outsiders versus politicians, because the concept of, okay, we're just going to shut the business down till we get it right is really powerful. And that's the type of energy. I'm tired of the compromise. I'm tired of the gray area. Leaders don't do average things. Leaders have to have exceptional visions and willing to take the risk to achieve that vision. And that's what I'm looking for. And
I was going to say, you look at my history. I am the only legislative leader in the history of our state that's ever passed constitutional carry. I was told that Republicans were going to lose majority in the House if I did that. Guess what? We didn't. The only leader that has passed making English the official language of the state of Michigan. I was told we were going to lose majority if we did that. Didn't happen. As I mentioned earlier, the first speaker in over 20 years that actually recorded a failed vote because it held members accountable. I was the first elected official in this state to call on Luana Simon, the president of Michigan State University, to resign over the Larry Nassar scandal. You would not believe the pushback that I got from that. Elected officials going after me publicly, saying that I denied her due process. I don't know what they were saying, the Speaker of the House asking her to
asking
resign.
someone to resign
But
isn't.
I was told that I had Republican donors calling, cussing me out because they were also donors to Michigan State University. And I was very clear to them. If this person was tasked to run your company or run your business, and this had happened on her watch, would she still be your CEO? And it was silent. And I said, then why should she be president of one of the state's top universities? She has to go. Guess what? 2 months later, when the snowball started to go down the hill, on Christmas Eve, guess who the next politician was to call on her to resign? It was Gretchen Whitmer on Christmas Eve. It took her 2 months, but at that point, all these individuals understood it was the right thing to do. I just happened to be a couple months early. I'm not afraid to push the envelope. I've got a history of that. I will do it as the state's next governor. I believe that the state's next governor has to come in and they have to govern every single day as if they're going to be a one-term governor. The state needs it.
Yeah, the state does need it. Let's talk a little bit about
Energy.
Where do you stand on?
Because it's good. The price of energy is starting to hurt.
Well, I was going to save price for last, but we can do price first. Where do you stand on the price for energy, and what can the governor do?
So, number one, we need more energy choice in this state. Going back to pushing the envelope, do you remember my good friend, maybe your good friend? I know he was friends to a lot of people in this state, Gary Glenn.
Yeah.
Nobody had tipped the apple cart more on energy issues than that guy did when he was on the Energy Committee and he was vice chair of the committee. I made Gary Glenn chair of Energy Committee when I was a speaker because I knew he would fight every day for more competition. I knew he would hold the utilities accountable. I knew he was not afraid to push the envelope. We need more competition in the state. That's a big one. Number two, we've got to start looking at nuclear. It's more efficient. It's more effective. It produces more energy. And guess what, environmentalists? It's a clean energy source.
It's also the safest
Yes.
energy source. At the end of the day,
The small modular reactors.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic.
The days of the China syndrome in, what was the place over
Chernobyl?
Well,
Chernobyl
was in Europe, but 3 Mile
Three
Island.
Mile Island. Yeah.
Those are done. And, we are spending right now, had this discussion with the Politico the other night. Private money right now because of the way government is looking at nuclear, is actually saying it's smarter for us to invest in old nuclear technology like Gretchen Whitmer did with our nuclear plants in 2 locations in the state, and to spend taxpayer money on old technology instead of allowing new technology, which costs less, which is cleaner, which is safer to be implemented.
And they can recycle their radioactive waste, like over 90% now.
Absolutely. So I don't understand, Tom. That nuclear issue I agree with, but man, there are some buttheads that are messing it up. Again, like literacy, we have a technology that's clean, that's safe. People don't come out glowing in the dark. Our military uses it on our aircrafts, in our submarines.
They want to put it on the moon.
It works.
This legislation that took away local control and now is going to allow for all these companies to put solar and wind across the state, that law's got to be repealed.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at the mentality of legislators in Lansing. I've mentioned this before. In November, there were 2 bills that were introduced. One was going to put a substantial regulatory burden on plumbers. The other one was going to do the same thing with electricians. The plumbing legislation made it to the governor's desk and she signed it. The one involving electricians was killed. Why? Because the environmentalists approached the legislature and said, if you pass this, we will not have the workforce available to put all of these solar panels and all these solar farms across the state. Now think about that for just a moment. We have an affordable housing crisis in this state. You have legislators that are more concerned about taking over farmers' fields and putting up solar farms than that care about building affordable housing for our loved ones across the state.
Do you know how many days there are in a year?
365.
365. Do you know how many sunny days there are in Michigan?
Oh, goodness. I don't know.
100,
110?
100, yeah.
I don't know.
On average, 74.
Yeah.
Okay.
So think of it in this respect.
Yeah, maybe on the east side.
Over
Maybe
70,
on the west side.
over 70% of the time, solar panels are not functioning at their highest level, their optimal levels. And yet we are focused, like you just said, on solar panels.
It's insanity.
If they were optimal, we wouldn't have to subsidize them and we wouldn't have to mandate them.
He's made that point, and you're exactly right. Look, like energy dense solutions, right? If it makes sense, let's roll with it, especially with more and more people going to electric and hybrids, especially with the AI stuff that's coming. We are going to just get our butts kicked here in the state of Michigan. Blackouts, everything else. I mean, we're on our way to Doomsville here, and people cannot see it. They're still clouded with this kind of, oh, this is great, we're saving the planet, and it's all garbage, hot garbage.
Yesterday, I was with a major investment firm talking to them about AI and power generation in the state of
centers?
Michigan, the data centers.
Yeah.
And they said, can't do it in Michigan. We're going to be all around Michigan because of the regulatory environment in Michigan and because of the way that we generate power, to your point, the lack of competitive nature with power. And what's going to be one of the fastest growing businesses? Data centers. What do data centers lead to? Improvements in infrastructure that would benefit other normal citizens within the state. What do? They employ high income people. What do? They create, instead of assembly jobs, manufacturing jobs. What do? They create service jobs to keep those things going. And Michigan has disqualified itself. While we pass, what was it? The second or third largest increase that DTE has got in the last decade was just passed in this legislature, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
There was a huge increase for DTE.
Okay.
That was approved. And that keeps business out of the state. Cost of living just went up. Services. Michigan has the third highest power outage rate of any state in the country.
You know, and we're so polarizing in the political climate. I mean, when do you think that people are going to realize that this kind of way of thinking, everything that you just said to me is common sense? Like, why aren't we attracting this, which means more businesses, more families, more opportunities, more revenue for the state? But we just continue to do the definition of insanity. I mean, we should get the Flintstone Award here for the future Barney Rebels of the world, because that's where we're going in the state of Michigan. Is like, it just doesn't make any sense. And it's so frustrating. Do you think the Michigan voter can finally start to grasp, as they're getting hit in the taxes with the energy prices going up? Do you finally think they're going to see the light and say, you know what? I think I'm going to go to a different candidate and a different party than we did in the past, because my life completely sucks.
You know, I think it's going to take a candidate out there every single day messaging this. And I think that what you just mentioned, that becomes the risk with Mike Duggan in taking votes away from Republicans if we don't have a candidate that can go out there on the debate stage with him and call some of this stuff out and articulate these issues. Because what they're going to do is, it's not necessarily that they're going to support his stance on issues. They're not going to know, and they're just going to say, hey, I'm going to vote independent because I want something new.
Correct. The ignorant voter. You know, in this conversation today, and we've now been talking for almost 2 hours, we have been talking about improving Michigan. We've been talking about improving the lives of our children. We've been talking about the potential improvements, the residual effects for our communities and our state. We have not brought up one partisan issue. No. Not one partisan issue. And to me, I like that, because you're running for governor, and some of the candidates on the Republican side are running under a partisan veil, which means
you're not going to win the general.
You can't win in the general, number one. And number two, you would not, in that responsible role, represent everyone. You would only be representing the people that you choose to represent. The California candidate for governor,
oh goodness, what a disaster.
Yesterday.
Oh yeah, ran off.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Just flat ass came out and said, the 45% of the people that voted for Donald Trump, I don't give a damn about them, because I'm not going to do anything they like anyway. And in nowhere, that is partisan in nature. The governor's responsibility is to show people leadership characteristics that work for everybody.
Yep.
And that's what the Republican Party in Michigan are, wacko right-wingers. And yes, I think you are wackos when you want to split the party up for the sake of your single issue. Man, you're holding back the whole state. Our issues, our policies are right.
And you know, absolutely. And you look at independents, you look at people in the middle. In fact, I would say even people on the left, when you start talking about some of these issues, okay, a vast majority of the state believe it's just common sense that teachers ought to be held accountable, and we ought to have merit pay to reward the good ones and get rid of the bad ones. A majority of the state, when you talk to them, they believe that workers ought to be empowered through right to work.
Yeah.
They believe it's just common sense that if you have a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis, and you have a skilled trades crisis, that if somebody is a 20-year certified journeyman electrician in South Carolina, if they move here, we should give them a job immediately, not make them jump through hoops for 4 or 5 months. A majority of the people of the state believe that if there is a senior in high school and they want to go into a trade, they shouldn't be forced to sit into a classroom and take a class they're never going to use if there's a trade school down the street and they can start to get certified. These are issues that speak to voters, and they're the issues we need to talk about.
Yeah. No compromise, no push. Regulatory environment. Give me 5 regulations that you think hold Michigan back.
Well, I mean, this big one, taking away local control. I mean, to me, I see that as being a regulatory issue.
It is a regulatory issue.
You are forcing this upon local governments. You know, I mentioned licensure reciprocity again. In you know, the example, I don't know if I mentioned him specifically, but I keep talking about the 20-year journeyman electrician. It was my uncle. He worked in South Carolina. He married my aunt. He came here, he moved here in the state to the state, and it took him 4 months to find a job because he had to take all these tests and he had to jump through all these hoops to find a job. I mean, that is just crazy. You look at what the Supreme Court recently did. I mean, the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court a couple of years ago slapped back the EPA and basically told them, so the EPA used to come into states and they would regulate wetlands, and the EPA would say, hey, if there's a mud puddle, we're going to deem that a wetland and we're not going to let you build here, or we're not going to let you farm here. The Supreme Court smacked back the EPA and basically said, you cannot do that. Okay. And when they did that, the state of Michigan became one of 2 states. We haven't fixed it. The governor could fix this. One of 2 states, us in New Jersey, that allows our state eagle to walk onto a farmer's field, say that's a mud puddle, I'm deeming this a wetland. That is absolutely absurd. You look at these departments promulgating these rules. I will give you an example. I had somebody that I worked with, and basically, without getting into too many details, basically he had to work with MDOT, and he had one bureaucrat promulgated a rule, woke up in the morning and realized there were only 2 companies that sold the product that he sells into the state, because of one bureaucrat woke up and said, my goodness, I can no longer sell in the state because they basically said that I have to build my product an extra, several inches to put on a guardrail. And there was no rhyme or reason as to why that happened. It took him, I had to work with him in the state several months to get that fixed. We got it fixed, but why should somebody have to come in here and pay somebody money to fix a decision that one bureaucrat made within a department? We've got to get rid of rulemaking authority across the board for these bureaucrats. Why is it? I'll tell you one that's ridiculous. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. Why is it that somebody has to spend more hours going to class to be a barber in Michigan than to be a commercial airline pilot?
It's the truth. You hear a lot of candidates talk about regulations, and I said it. I believe it's possible that a governor could say to his legislature, for every new law that you introduce, you have to repeal between 5 and 10 regulations or laws that are not being effectively utilized or are on the books in disrupting the state of Michigan. How do you feel about making a statement like that?
So to me, I don't want to come up with just an arbitrary number. I think we need common sense when it comes to regulation. Let me give you an example, okay? One of the first things that Rick Snyder did when he came into office, and I think it was the first bill he signed into law, and it was very good. It created the MEAP program for our farmers. And basically what it did was it said, listen, we don't want to regulate you out of business. We understand that farming and agriculture is the second leading industry of the state of Michigan. We want to work with you. We want to assist you. So they created the MEAP program that basically allows farmers voluntarily, they don't have to do this, voluntarily, they can come to the state and they can get MEAP verified or MEAP assured, okay? And then what happens is, if there's an accident on their farm, they can report it to the state immediately, and the state works with them to clean it up. And as long as there was nothing intentional, as long as it wasn't reckless, it was an honest mistake, they don't have to fear any retribution from the state. Why do we not put in a common sense regulatory environment like that for all industries across the state? I mean, let's talk about the restaurant industry for just a moment. Imagine if there was some type of MEAP program for restaurant owners. And if something went wrong in that restaurant and somebody got sick because there was some type of bacteria on food that they didn't know about, instead of getting worried that they were going to lose their license or be shut down, what if there was some type of program where they could immediately contact the state and fix the problem? I mean, I think we need common sense regulatory reform. That's what we need in this state.
Well, I'm going to go back to, though, and I'm going to press you on it. Less regulations, less laws. Yes, they should be common sense. But there's so many uncommon sensed rules and regulations out there that they need to be eliminated, because the reference point is You know, look at what Trump has had to do. He's looking at laws from 1700.
Right.
Because there's so many laws that have been passed that prevent the true intent of the law to be productive. And I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, so in the reason I don't want to just put an arbitrary number on it, because I
respect
don't know
that.
I don't know how high it would go, because again, you look at my policy platform, okay? It calls for taking every single law in the state of Michigan where a department has rule-making authority in taking that rule-making authority away.
That's a good first step.
I mean, that to me, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands of regulations that would, and again, and you know what else it would do? It would hold the legislature accountable. No longer could they get phone calls and they could say, hey, I'm sorry, Eagle has that rule-making authority and I can't stop it, or the DNR has that rule-making authority and I can't stop it. No, it would be incumbent on them to make the rules and make the laws, the people that are accountable to the people that they represent.
Great point.
So again, I'm not trying to push back on giving you a number. I could say 5-1. I could say 10-1. I'll be frank with you. I don't know how many regulations there are out there. There's hundreds, if not thousands, where these departments can just promulgate these rules. I say, let's put it back in the hands of the people that have been elected, not bureaucrats that don't have to be accountable to the people they serve.
And I pick a number not because it's arbitrary, but it shows intent and it shows progress. And that's what I'm looking for. Something that is measurable. That's the business guy in me. You know, when I look at reading literacy, I want it over 90%. And it's measurable by a third party. No excuses.
And so for me, again, I don't want to be the guy that comes in here. I mean, you hear these politicians out there, for every one we pass, we're going to eliminate 2. And then you ask them, okay, what does that mean? What would you eliminate? And they just sit and they look at you like a deer in headlights. I've said,
Sure.
You know what? Let's get to the root of the problem. Let's
Fair
get
enough.
rid of the rule-making authority for these departments. Done. End of story. Any law that gives departments rule-making authority, let's eliminate it and let's put it back in the hands of the legislature.
And I think the majority of people just want that, is the depth.
Yeah.
They just want, give us common sense. Let's and action. I mean, that's what we're looking for, as a leader, to actually take the action and implement these things. And I think the majority of people want that.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing ultimately, just approaching it, you know, and really what matters is the result.
Yeah.
Because that's what we should be measured on.
And to me, what I believe my plan does is it gets to the root of the problem. Why do we have all these rules and regulations? Because we've given these departments all this authority. Let's take the authority away.
Yeah.
And what I like too is, I think we're over 2 hours, right? We're getting close to 2 hours. I mean, I think when you just have a conversation with people, no edits, just a long conversation, you get it all out there. The people now in today's political climate, I think that's what's needed. The commercials, all that stuff. This is the future, I think, of politics, is these long formats and getting to the depth of the candidates.
Well, you can't make decisions based on 30-second blips.
No, I enjoy doing this. Thank you.
Yeah. And I want to thank you. I said it when other candidates were on, that there is a level of courage involved. And I mean that. It's courageous of you to be here. There is a level of trust. And I think that you're leaving here. Nobody tried to zing you.
No.
This isn't about zingers. You had an opportunity today to share with our viewers what your Michigan would look like. And all I want is people to make educated decisions, and that we start to choose qualified people who are willing to be held accountable. So I applaud you. I thank you. Keep up the good fight. Continue to watch. Is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with, as far as how to contact you for speeches, for donations, whatever?
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to tell just a quick story if I could. It'll take me a couple minutes. And I remember I had told this when you and I chatted a couple months ago, but I think it's very important for your viewers to understand me, who I am, and the way that I view the world. But they can go to our website at tomformichigan.com. Our policy platform is right there. We've been transparent. We're going to continue to update it. And if anybody has any ideas, send them to us. This is going to be a living, breathing document that we are going to add to in the months ahead. But, the story I wanted to tell was this. When I was a prosecutor, I had this case, and I often get people come up to me all the time and they'll say, what was the proudest case that you had as a prosecutor, and how many years did you put that person in prison for? And my response is, we had some of those cases, but the proudest case that I had wasn't one where we put somebody in prison. It was one where we kept a young man out. And I showed up to this hearing, and this young man, 17 years old, he'd been charged as an adult, 3 10-year felonies, assault with intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder. He shot these 3 young men at a bus stop in the north end of Flint. And I showed up to that initial hearing, and his attorney grabbed me and he said, Tom, would you do me a favor? I want you to go in the back, in the holding cell with this young man, spend a few minutes with him, and come back here and talk to me. I was in that holding cell for over an hour. Young man, orange jumpsuit, shackled, crying. And he said, sir, I don't know what to do. Everything in that police report is 100% accurate. What's not in the report is this. What I did that day was in self-defense. These 3 men attacked me. I thought they were going to kill me, and I shot them in self-defense. And I don't know what to do because it's 3 people's word against 1. I'm going to prison for the next 10 years, and I'm going to be a convicted felon, and I'm never going to work again. My life is going to be ruined. For some reason, there was something in my heart. I believed that young man. I went back out in the courtroom, and I told my officer in charge, Rod, I know you're not going to be happy. I need you to go to that bus stop, and I need you to figure out if there was any surveillance that day. About 4 hours later, he came back holding this DVD. We put it into the computer, and everything that this young man said was 100% true. Within an hour, we got him out of jail, and we had the other 3 arrested for falsifying a police report. I tell that story because of this. As I travel the state, I believe many people feel the same way that that young man did that day. They feel like the government's coming down upon them. They feel like it doesn't matter how much money they make, it's not enough because they can't keep up with the rising property taxes or housing costs. They feel like their kids are not being educated, and they are looking for somebody that's going to crisscross the state, listen to their problems, and come to the table with real and serious policy solutions, not talking points and not poking other politicians. That's what I'm going to do over the next year as I campaign. And when I'm the state's next governor, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go to work fixing the problems of the people of the state.
That's powerful.
Yeah. You know what? There you have it, folks. Tom, thank you for coming. Tom Leonard,
Thank you.
candidate for governor.
We're not
Garrett
done.
Soldano.
We're not done.
We're not done.
We got to call Craig Mocker.
Oh, yeah. Where's Craig?
We're
This is our segment on Where's Craig.
Where's Craig? It's not Where's Waldo. It's Where's Craig. Let's see if he answers. We're calling his phone.
Let's see. Craig Mauger.
This is Craig Mulder. Please leave me a message.
Once again, we get the do not
Craig,
disturb.
Craig, again, we're on a show. We're not live, but we wouldn't do that to you, Craig. But I'm here with your main man, Kevin Rinke.
Where's
myself.
Craig?
Kevin really wants you on, Craig. And we have gubernatorial candidate Tom Leonard. And we just had some questions regarding if it was Tom Leonard, Jocelyn Benson, and Dugan, who are you going to vote for, Craig?
Where's Craig?
Still want you to come on. Please talk to your boss, see if you can come on the show, because we would love to have a good conversation with you. All right, buddy. I look forward to talking to you. Bye-bye. We're going to keep calling him.
Absolutely, we keep calling.
We're going to
him.
keep calling.
I don't know why a journalist wouldn't want to be on a show and talk about their experiences as a journalist.
And I got to give my man Dave Garr a shout out. You know this.
Okay.
You know we're going to talk about this.
We're going to talk
if you're
about
visiting the Detroit area, which you live over there,
Yes,
you
I
may
do.
need a ride. You travel all over. You go on the Tigers games, go on the Lions game. You're big time. But you may need a pickup from a Dream Limousine and Sedan serving Southeast Michigan, your neck of the woods. They've been serving for 20 years. It's a long time, Kevin, with late model sedans, SUVs, vans, limos, and party buses up to 40 passenger capacity. Tom, if you win, we're expecting you to rent a bus. Me and Kevin will be on it on our tour.
From Dream Limo.
Yeah.
You can
from
be big
Dream
time,
Limousine and
part
Sedan.
time, or sometime and still rent from Dream Limo.
And we get a guided tour, complete with sub sandwiches with Detroit's own better made potato chips. You've been to that factory.
I committed a crime that day.
But not with this company.
No, with Better Made, because I was on the production line and I'm looking around and I love barbecue chips. And I'm not bullshitting. I reached
hear you
out,
there.
I grabbed a bag off the line, opened it up,
And you ate
filled
it.
my face.
The regulations probably don't like that.
You're
You're probably going to get fined.
I might.
But any party, any size, any time, Kevin, a dreamlimo.com, 734-542-6800. And guess what? He included this. Mention Grassroots Army and get $10 per person off a tour of Detroit. Thank you, Dave. We love you.
I don't know who Dave is, do I?
Great guy. No, you haven't met him yet.
I haven't met him.
Once you
yet,
meet
so
him, you'll never
anyway.
forget him because he has epic hair.
Go Dave.
Dave and Garrett have a love affair. And again, another really, really sound edition of Beyond the Echo. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming.
Thank you. It was
We'll
it was
see
a
y'all
blast.
soon.